Brothers and sisters, we rise prayer. In the name of Allah, the beneficent and merciful. All praise I do thee, Allah, Lord of all the worlds. The beneficent, merciful. So, Master, in the day of judgment in which we now live, thee alone do we serve, thee alone do we seek for thy help and aid and mercy. O Allah, please guide us in the right path, the path of those upon whom thou hast bestowed thy favors, not the path of those upon whom thy wrath has been brought down, but the path of those gone astray after they have heard thy teachings. Say, here Allah is one God. Allah is he of whom nothing is independent, but upon whom we all depend. He begins not, nor is begotten, and there is none like him. And I bear witness that none deserves to be served, worship, or praise besides Allah, who came to us in the person of Master Farad Muhammad. And I bear witness that the most honorable Elijah Muhammad is our true servant, last apostle. Amen.
In the name of Allah, came in the person of Master Farad Muhammad. I greet the brothers and the sisters of the nation, reading words of peace. Assalamu alaikum. I'm going to just start off by saying it's an honor and a privilege to stand here, and I thank you and I appreciate you for having me. Brother Minister Jabron from Chicago sends the greetings. Brother Minister Michael Shabazz from Gary, Indiana sends the greetings. Brother Michael Shabazz from Long Beach sends the greetings. Minister Isaac from New York. Brother Harvey Shabazz from Virginia and his family. And Minister Muhammad Bey from Oakland sends the greetings. I just want to first start off saying, like, I did not want to do this. I'll tell you, I did not want to do this. But one thing that's shown me for the past couple of weeks is that any brother can do this. Any brother can get up here and do it. It doesn't take, and I want to give Brother Left and Brother Khalil a round of applause because they did a really good job the past couple of weeks. And I know Khalil, I think he had about a day's notice, and I think he did a really good job in a day's notice. And anybody can do this if their heart is right. And that's the beautiful thing about the brotherhood and about the sisterhood, that it's brother before everything, brother sister before everything. It goes brother minister, brother captain, brother secretary, sister secretary. It's brother and sister first. And so since it's set up that way, it can be like that. We can have, anybody can do it. And so titles, we don't get wrapped up in titles because you're a brother first. So titles, you start off with, if you start thinking about, oh, I'm so big because I have a title, the title is nothing. You're a brother. You just have a position. This is just like if you was a janitor or if you was a CEO. That's just a position. You all need it to run the company. For the company to run, you got to have a janitor. The bathroom all messed up. Don't nobody want to come there. So you need a janitor. It's just as important. It's just that, if you think that your position is, that's why you say love self. Because if you don't think your own position is good enough, then you're probably not fit for that position. Thank you. If everybody remembered that, there would be no big heads. There would no be big eyes. If everybody remembered that the first part of my title is brother. And we have to have that love for the brotherhood and the sisterhood. We have to have that love. It has to come with that first. And it has to, and it's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing. The brotherhood and sisterhood is a beautiful thing. Nobody is exalted over nobody else. Everybody's on the same playing field. In the eyesight of Allah, we all the same. And we have to keep that forefront in our minds, and you can tell when somebody loves the brotherhood or love anything. It's like I see guys like washing their cars, and you can see when you see a guy's car, every day he go out there, he polishing it and he washing it, and he get the rims on it, and it's all decked out. You like, he love that car. You can tell he love that car. You can tell by the way he treat it. He treat it like he love it. He love that. And we have to be the same way. You can tell that you love it by the way you treat it, and by the way we treat each other. And Messenger said that in a letter to the ministers in 1935, he says that not one of us can call ourselves a believer in Allah unless we love our brother like we love ourselves. So you can't even call yourself a believer in Allah unless you first love your brother like you love yourself. And we have to show that, and we have to exude that. And our people see it. We don't want our people coming in here, off the street, dealing with the same cutthroat, backstabbing type stuff, and then come in here and have to deal with the same thing. That's not the way. We have to show a good example, a very good example, and this, you can feel it. You can go somewhere where everything is good and everything. You can feel that feeling. Like, you ever been to like a restaurant or a grocery store, like maybe a family-owned business or whatever? You can be like, this is all right. They love this place. This is great, and you can feel that, and you can also feel it when you walk into like a bigger chain, and you walk in, and don't nobody care. You know, it's just like who's next. You know, and it's not don't nobody care about nobody in there. And you can feel that, and just keep that in our minds that that's what we want to exude that, and we are no better than our brothers on the street. We are the lost found nation of Islam. So we not like, if you get to the point where we starting to feel like we know so much or we so much higher than our people that's out there on the street, then we'll look at them. We'll start to forget that we even brothers on the inside. Cause like the message said, if you love your brother in New York, then show me like you love your brother in Chicago. That's how you show me. And it's the same way, if we love our brother in the street, then show us that we love each other in the temple. You can't say that you don't love the people in the temple, but you love the brother out there. You should. Any brother and sister can work with each other that never even seen each other before, as long as they say that they Muslim. And our people out there in the streets, we not above them. We trying to be upright. We are. It's almost like we can almost blame the. You can blame the devil for everything, really. You can blame him for everything, but that don't mean, like, take for instance, if somebody was to take, if I took everybody in this temple and left them off in the desert, right? And you could sit there and you could do two things. You could sit there and say, I'm gonna die of thirst, you know, because it's David's fault. He brought me here and he left me here, and I'm messed up. And that's messed up what he did. And you can sit there and you can die of thirst. You can die from the sun, or you can start building something and get yourself some shade, get yourself something to make it better from where you at. Now, you don't forget that David brought me here. This is why I'm here. When you have kids, your kids are affected by what I did. So later on, they're going to grow up and just tell them, yeah, remember, we here because of what David brought us here. You know what I'm saying? He brought me here, and now we all messed up because of that. But now we can't die from shade. And now we built some shade, and over time we get our shade, we got stuff better, things are a little bit better. Now it's wrong for us to know that our other brothers and sisters that's been taken, that's been sitting out there burning up, and we not sharing our shade with them. Right. We just sitting in the shade like, well, I'm good, you know. That's not love for the brotherhood, and that's not love for the sister. You can't say, oh, I'm straight, but they not, and think that that's cool. It's not. We have Ramadan coming up, and it's a good time to get ourselves, you know, back on track on things. You know, it's a good sharpening up point. And like the message say, it's nothing different than what we supposedly have been doing. We just getting back on where we was at from the beginning. So we're just trying to get ourselves back in order. And I found this letter from Frederick Douglass that it was printed in the paper, and he was talking about Frederick Douglass was a slave. He was actual slave. It wasn't just like a mental slave. He was a physical slave. He was out there, and he was one of the few that was able to read and write. And he talked about what it was like to be a slave and what Christmas time was like for a slave. That was the one time that we had some time to ourselves or some time off. So we was happy to. We didn't have to know what Christmas was, but just know that I ain't got to work today. All right, I like this. So. And it's about what you do at that time, is what Frederick Douglass talked about. It was considered improper, or you was to be looked at as like something wrong with you if you were to do anything but drink. If you did anything but drink and sit around and dance and stuff, then that was something wrong. Something wrong with you. You like as far as the master's eyes, he would look at you and say, oh no, something wrong with that one. He should be drinking. You should be drinking. So like you would get reprimanded for not drinking during slavery. Or during Christmas. So some would do odd jobs. They would make stuff that they could sell. And even if they raised like $3 on that day, that'd be something that they could put to the side. And after a few years, you know, they can add that up and buy their own freedom, or some of them would try to escape during that time, you know. So it depends on what you do on that with that time. We here, we might have that time off of work, and you'd be glad to have that time off work. It depends on what you do with that time. You know, they celebrate Christmas this whole month. So what we do in our time is we do Ramadan. And that's what the messengers prescribed for us. And he got us, and the messenger got us together. He put us. That's why the devil don't like us to. He want us to participate, and he want everybody to participate. He want this almighty dollar to come back to him. And but if we are restraining from eating during this time and not eating during the daylight hours, you spend a lot of money eating. If you look at your bank statements, is especially if you eating fast food and all that. Oh, you ranking up some money. You know, $10 here. If you think about spending $10 a day. Spending $10 a day. Now, if somebody told you, hey man, you got this new bill and it's $10 a day, you say, can't pay $10. I can't afford that. That's too much money. That's too much money. $10 a day. You start adding up. That's $70 a week. And you're like, no, I can't do that. But if you think about it, if you spending you ain't gonna get no more less than $10 when you go someplace unless you're getting hot and ready. You know what I mean? You ain't getting under $10 too many places. So if you spending $10 every day, that's money. So if you now not eating during the daylight hours and you planning your meals, because now if you ain't eating, that's funny. When you ain't eating, you start to think about a lot of different things. A whole lot of times you've been doing with your time, like, man, I'm not eating, I'm not thinking about eating. Maybe what else can I think about? You all them times you might open the refrigerator, look at it, and be like, no, and just close it, just because of habit. You just habit of just eating, and the devil loves that. We eating how to eat to live. That's commercialization is just big in this country. If you're not constantly spending your money, then they don't like that too much. They start looking at it, something wrong with you. Just like how Frederick Douglass said, something wrong with that one. We want him to eat, and we need that. And we shouldn't be quarreling with each other during this month and during this time, because Allah is not with us when we argue. We don't eat or drink during the daylight hours, and we don't eat any land meats. And one thing I never noticed before is that we aren't supposed to even kill, take a life of any kind during this month. And I thought about that, and I thought about when you think about stepping on a bug or something like that, that's taking a life. And it's something to even think about it that far, that's something. And we keep our minds clean and keep our bodies clean. And I'm really looking forward to this Ramadan. It's a good get you on track thing. It's good something to get you started. A lot of people do New Year's resolutions at the end of December, but if you look at it, we just our New Year type of our New Year type of resolution. And for those who, especially like other temples, a lot of people nowadays believe that we doing it wrong because we fasting during the month of December, or that or the messenger was trying to get us ready for something greater. Like this was something simple, just because a lot of them like to say because it get darker quicker in December, so it's easier, so whatever. This is like the messenger said, this is what we supposed to been doing. How is that easier? The Arabs, they do everything. They smoke, they eat all times of the day. They even eat meat during their Ramadan. So how could you even say that this was easier? This is nowhere near easier. We and the messenger had put in How to Eat to Live about what does it mean to fast, and Holy Quran, he backs him up on it, saying that O you who believe, fasting is prescribed for you as it was prescribed for those before you, so that you may guard against evil. That is what the Holy Quran says why we fast. So during this month of December, this is where the devil has his most fun. He makes most of his money during this time, and he does all kind of evil during this time. And drinking and eating hog to a lot of our people is like, what? That's not evil. That's not considered evil. But this is done in abundance during this time. A lot of people rob each other during this time because they know they got money for buying gifts and all that kind of stuff. The devil robs you during this time. Just buying gifts and spending money, and people go into debt during this time, and this is why this is an evil time. They're celebrating an evil man named Nimrod. So this is an evil time. This is a celebration of an evil man so there's evil going on in this time. So we're protecting ourselves against evil, like the Holy Quran says. This is what you fast for. And that's still not enough. The message says that he prescribes this month of December for us to take as a fast instead of the regular month that the Arabs fast in. The key word in that is instead. So if you say, I just do both, you're trying to please everybody. No, you can't do both, because he said instead. So if you're doing both, then you out of order. So if that's not enough for you there, then you're not a follower of the messenger. And then go ahead and say that. Say, I'm not a follower of the messenger. I'm an Orthodox Muslim, and I practice that way. And then it's like, okay, fine. Yes, that's your choice to do that. And but don't lump the messenger in. I said that's he was adding your own stuff in, talking about he was getting us ready for something. That's not getting us ready for nothing. Fasting takes away evil desires. Fasting takes from us filthy desires, and fasting takes from us the desire to do evil. And that's why it's good for during this time. And And it's, of course, we Muslim and we trying to be upright, so we should be doing that all the time. But it's different when you got a little fire under you to make you do it, and everybody on the same page. We're gonna try our best during this month, and we trying to keep up our prayers during this month. Which you're supposed to keep up your prayers every day, but this time, really try harder. Try to match those times. How about making it a little hard? Adding a little extra on there. Try to make sure I get these times during the prayers. If you normally can't make the times, try to do the times a little more this time. And I think I know like a lot of times I like to add extra stuff onto it. Like, I'm gonna try not to eat bread during this Ramadan or things like that. And that's good because it help you. And then other brothers and sisters sharing what they doing a little extra. Give you a little shot in the arm. And whereas normally we probably would have never talked about it, But now it's how you bettering yourself, and that's what we always should be doing, is trying to better ourselves. And if we don't love ourselves, then you can't love your brother and sister. And if you're not being healthy, you're not loving yourself. And if you're not healthy, if you're not healthy, and you're not taking care of yourself, then that's showing from the ground up that you're not caring about your brother and sister, because you don't even care about yourself, And so yeah, we eating in this month the way we always should have been eating, So and we get, the Arab world is spooky. A lot of us get real spooky, and the message said about the reason they fast because this is when Prophet Muhammad was revealed the Holy Quran. I mean, it said when we already got the Holy Quran, it's already been revealed to you. We don't keep fasting about that. We fasting in this month to keep ourselves together because of so much stuff that's going on during this time. And we have to be careful ourselves from getting spooky, because I don't know, I've seen people do it and I've done it myself sometimes. You go to being like, oh, thank Allah. Like, what you looking up for? Oh, Allah. What's that? Oh, Allah ain't up there. And I know heaven and hell was a hard... we never heard the term or the idea of an afterlife or heaven and hell, what's real would sound all right. It would sound pretty good if heaven and hell was never introduced to you. You just never heard like, when I die, it's gonna be something extra happening. There's nothing extra happening. And if you look at what the real is, it's actually just as beautiful, if not more beautiful, than what's actually happening. When I had a loss recently, and it made it easier to know that was it. This was it. There's nothing more coming after this. And knowing that, it makes it better, because you think about us living here. Memory transfers through DNA. So this experience is that we share with each other, you remember it. And your kids, it goes straight into your kids. It's like how the devil used us. I talked about it last week, about how he put fear in the babies. And if you could put fear in your babies, that means there's memory transferring through there. So if you die, when you die, things that were in you goes on to your children. So you live forever, just not in the way that they made it all spooky with. So yeah, living forever sounds great, and it is great, but it's not in the way that you think. You don't live forever because you, as yourself, live forever. It goes on to your children. And the DNA, and it's something that's how. If you look at a deer is able to walk as soon as it comes out of the womb. Nobody had to teach it anything. Your thyroid gland works without nobody telling you to do it. You don't know how to work your thyroid gland. You don't know when you do this, you don't know how you're doing it. You just do it, because it's transferred through you. So where did you learn that from? It was passed on through you. All these generations is in you. So, and that's beautiful. I think that's great. If you think that we can get our heaven while we live, that's even better. Now you ain't gotta wait to die. Not only is you got a secure plan already for afterlife. It's already said. You can see it happening. You got control over your afterlife. The things that you do and the things that you say that pass on to other people, that you got control over. So you can control your own afterlife. Not only that, and you can experience heaven while you live. That's better. That's better than dying and flying around heaven with wings. I don't need no wings. So we in the same way, you can make your own hell by not just what you experience now in your afterlife, quote unquote afterlife, by the way you treat other people. So now when people remembering you, like, oh, I can't stand him. He was the worst. If that's what people are saying about you after you die, then no, you in hell. That's hell for you. And ask yourself, what was it like to go to sleep and never wake up? right? And then if you ask yourself a little bit later on, what was it like to have never woken up? I mean, to have never been alive, and then to wake up. When people die, more people are born. It goes on. It goes on. When you're not here, it goes on. But you still here because it's beautiful. And because it's odd that anything exists at all. It'd be easier if nothing just ever happened. It'd be much easier. But that's why you here. You have an aim or a purpose just for being here. Because it'd be easier if nobody ever existed. It'd be just easier. Nothing. But so you here. So now what? So now what? And the messenger taught us. He covered every ground, and it's amazing how much he covered. Because you may have other leaders back in the day that may have said, "Oh, they had this plan," or they wanted the civil rights movement, or you might have a bread basket, or something new, some little piece of something. It was never nothing that was actual that covered everything. Right. He got us to clean up ourselves internally and externally. He taught us how to get businesses together. He taught us how to treat each other. He taught us how to even to plan for emergencies. They just now recently started talking about planning for emergencies and boiling water and things like that. He didn't leave down one stone unturned. He covered it all. And the stuff you think about, so much that's lost, so much stuff that people have as far as like documentation. Think about letters and things like that. So he probably covered even more than what we even realized. But just on what we do have, for sure, just in his books alone, he covered so much. And I'm thankful. And he taught us about getting a survival list. And that survival list is really important because we're planning for the inevitable. And it may not happen in your lifetime, but you're ready. And he taught us to get out of debt. Getting out of debt is just as important as saving up some money, because this devil will come right around the corner, knock on the door, say, "You know that $100,000 you owe me? It's okay. You can just come out here and work it off. You know, you good for that." And it was a wise person once told me that good credit just means you're good at being in debt. They tell you to get some credit, you got to have some debt. That's right. So you can't have no debt. You can't have no credit without no debt. So if you got good credit, you're good at it. You're paying the minimum balance, aren't you? I stay like that. And usury is a sin, and the devil will use us. And the messenger taught us that that not even no God lives forever, and that but your wisdom lives on. Their wisdom lives on. And if the gods don't live forever, then you not either. And I think I done covered everything I was ready to cover. You know, you talk faster, so you don't realize when you write it down, it's a whole lot more. But then once you get to saying it, it's like, okay, that's that bullet point. But I don't want to stand here without a script, and I don't want to say something off the top of my head and then it's wrong. So without I'll go ahead and give this a close, unless Brother Khalil, you have something you want to say. Thank you.
In the name of Allah, who came in the person of Master Farad Muhammad, and in the name of his last and greatest messenger, most honored be Elijah Muhammad, I greet the brothers and sisters with the Nation of Islam's greeting words of peace of Assalamu alaikum. That was good, brother. I really enjoyed that. That was good. But I wanted to talk about, this comes from the May 10th, 1968 Muhammad Speaks, and it's called Lazarus Lying at the Rich Man's Gate. And this is this article, the messenger actually was talking about Martin Luther King. And Martin Luther King had recently died. He recently died, I think it was April of 1968. And then May, a few weeks later, the Messenger wrote an article dealing with Martin Luther King. And the one thing that I like to stress often is that in today's Islam, Muslims must get what the Messenger said from the Messenger. You can't trust and rely on anybody, even if you listen to a minister that you like. He should be telling you what you should already know, or you already trying to figure out for yourself. It shouldn't be like you relying on him to tell you what the Messenger said. Because they had these NOI archivists, and what the NOI archivists like to do in this generation is pretty much sympathize with the present culture. And most people don't want to hear the truth about Martin Luther King. They want to hear you tell him what good leader he was, how much he helped black people, but that wasn't the Messenger's position on Martin Luther King. So the NOI archivists, this was an article printed by the Chicago Defender when Martin Luther King met with the Messenger. And it says, King Muslims join forces in war on slums. Now this was a misprint that they said about Martin Luther King and the Messenger. And this is what the NOI archivists will post, knowing for a fact that Dr. King, when he met with the Messenger, the Jet magazine covered the meeting that the Messenger had with Martin Luther King, and it was in the March 10th, 1966 Jet magazine. And this is what Martin Luther King said about the meeting with him and the Messenger. And this is the March 10th, 1966 Jet magazine. And you can go on Google under Jet magazine and you can search through all of their magazines. This is what Dr. King said. He said, I am deeply concerned about the distortion surrounding my brief meeting with Elijah Muhammad. Some of the reports say that we formed an alliance to attack slum problems. This is not true. There was no attempt on my part to develop an alliance with Mr. Muhammad, Dr. King said. An alliance with Mr. Muhammad was impossible because of their diametrically opposed philosophies. I have no illusions about converting the Muslims to my way of thinking. They believe that all white people are devils, and I say that is not true. That's what he said. Now this article that they printed in the Chicago Defender was a misprint, and he addressed it. But if you don't know that, and you see these NOI archivists that only print out certain things about the Messenger, they only print the things that make you believe what they want you to believe about the Messenger. And they don't want you to believe the Elijah Muhammad that was in the Muhammad Speaks. Because the Elijah Muhammad that was in the Muhammad Speaks spoke against every black social norm that was going on during that time. He spoke against Afros. He spoke against black power. He spoke against the Panthers. He spoke against Afrocentrics. He spoke against Muslims. He spoke against everybody who was out of order. He said something about it, and it was in the Muhammad Speaks. All praise before Allah. And if you read the Muhammad Speaks newspaper, you will see that the Messenger had no favorites. Because this is a picture that was in the Muhammad Speaks. Let me find it. This is a picture right here with Jesse Jackson and the Supreme Captain. The Messenger still wrote articles against Jesse Jackson. He didn't say, oh, well, you know, Jesse Jackson coming to the salon. Right. Jesse Jackson coming to my house, so now I'm not going to say nothing about it. Nah, the Messenger still talked about Jesse Jackson. Sometimes he would say the breadbasket man and wouldn't say his name. Right. But sometime in the article, he'd just say flat out, I was ashamed of Jesse Jackson and what he did. But in today's Islam, if I take a picture with Kanye West, and Kanye West come out with something that goes against the Muslims, I'm not going to say nothing about Kanye West, because I'm cool with Kanye West now. But that wasn't the Messenger's, that wasn't his way. And on the front of this paper that's talking about Martin Luther King weeks after he died, Let's keep that in mind. It wasn't like he was dead a year. He was dead a few weeks. And on the front page of the Muhammad Speaks newspaper, it had this cartoon with somebody on their knees, and you see the white man standing over him. And it say, "Boss, please accept me as your brother. Boss, I hate black and I love white." Talking about Martin Luther King. Flat out. Message say, "Oh, he just died." Let me not say that. He said it after his death. How do you think black people felt when brothers out there selling their papers and they see this brother on his knees with the white man standing over him? He talking about boss. So in the article, what the messenger said, and it's Lazarus lying at the rich man's gate. He said, "What do the marchers founded by Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. expect to gain from doing disgraceful things that are against intelligence and decent principles? The Christian preachers forget about the teachings of their Bible for the love of trying to get the respect of the white man. They will lead their followers into disgrace and shame, and finally into hell. They want to appear big and honorable in the eyes of the world at any price." Reverend Martin Luther King declared on television and over the radio that he wanted to be the brother of white people, our enemies, which he was not created to be by nature, and not their brother-in-law, which means that he wanted to be a blood brother of white people as do his followers. So he's making it clear, yeah. This is Dr. King. 2 weeks or 3 weeks after he died, with all these brothers around the country with their papers, to these Christians, Muhammad Speaks, with this in their face. That's just the reality. But in today's Islam, if you was to do that, oh, you shouldn't have said he just died, you know? But the messenger did it. And the messenger did it not only with lost founds, but Muslims too. And that's a reality. And he said some of the things that he said, like in his articles about sisters, it was a question and answer. They was asking the messenger about sisters coming to the temple with skirts above their knees. So they was asking the messenger about, like, how did he feel about that? He said that, it was ministers who was doing that, but he said those were the ministers who wanted big numbers. He said that ministers should stop doing that. He said, because if she wants it, he said sometimes you will find that the sister will lower her hem, or she'll go home and put something else on. That's what he said. So they was like, well, what happens if she go home and she never comes back? He said, well, if she go home and don't come back, she can stay home forever. And he didn't say it like he was just like, well, she could go home forever. And that's how his position was on everything that he talked about. It was take it or leave it. It wasn't no thing where you read the messenger article and you felt like he was trying to convince you. It was like, look, this is what I was told. This is what he said you should do. You do it, you like it or not. It wasn't a thing where it was like he was trying to get it over to you in such a way to make you, no, there wasn't nothing like that. And in today's Islam, the brothers like Savior's Day 1974. A lot of Muslims now say, how the messenger changed. Because in that Savior's Day, the messenger said that we shouldn't make mockery of the white man. So now they take that as him saying, calling the white man the devil is mockery. Now it's mockery to call the white man the devil. Now it's the messenger in Savior's Day I think it was 73, because a lot of the Savior's Day they will reprint his speech. He was calling the white woman an ugly woman. He was saying how his mission was to take the black woman and save the black woman, and brothers should stop dating these ugly white women. That's what he said. He would say that the white man was a civilized monkey that you see at the zoo. And he would just say it like it was just nothing. Like he didn't say it like he felt like, oh, I might offend somebody by saying it. And he just said it like that's what it was. You know what I'm saying? And in today's Islam, they try to remake the messenger into like he was a civil rights leader. Like try to make people think that he would be going for what we doing now. And he would not. He would not be going for. A lot of us have an imagination of what we think the messenger was. Because a lot of us think that a lot of this black stuff that's going on, this is good too. But it's not. And the one thing that I'll stress is people should read take advantage of the fact that those old issues are online. Because there's a lot of misconceptions that we would even have as Muslims who believe. Because you could get caught up, because sometimes I will really be feeling bad, like, well, should I be calling a white man a devil like this? Like, is it wrong to do that? Yeah, for real, because when I first got my Muhammad Speaks newspapers and was seeing what the messenger was against and what he would speak against Muslims, because I would never have thought until I got a Muhammad Speaks newspaper that brothers was going in white people's neighborhoods selling the Muhammad Speaks. I wouldn't have thought that in a million years. And it got to a point where the messenger said that if you catch them again, they suspend it indefinitely. Like, just kick them out. I would never have thought that sisters was writing letters to prisoners, sweetheart letters. It was in the Muhammad, and it wasn't like it was a secret. It was in the Muhammad Speaks for everybody to see. And they were writing and say to the prisoners, if you get one of these letters, send it to the messenger. Send it in on them. And I was like, wow. I didn't know. They had another article talking about ministers, captains, and secretaries who was changing the messenger's teachings. He was like, I'm getting tired of you doing it. He said, if you continue to do it, we will sue you. He was talking about Muslims having meetings in any old kind of rundown place. He was talking about ministers taking on subjects that they had nothing to do with what he was talking about. And you would be like, wow. So you see today, when a minister will try to make it seem like I was his #1 student. How, if you reading them now, before then, I ain't gonna lie, I used to get caught up in that when I was a lost found. With that, you the #1 student. Like, well, he was the national representative. So, I mean, he gotta be #1 if he was the, national representative. But when you read in the Muhammad Speaks newspaper, every minister, and this is the point that I want to stress too, every minister of the messenger was a powerhouse in his city. Every minister. That's a fact. Because when you read, it was an article done by a brother named Earl X, who was in Nashville, Tennessee. Whoever heard of Earl X? And then whoever thought about a temple being in Nashville, Tennessee? But this brother Earl X, not only was he in the Muhammad Speaks, this brother was in the Tennessean in Nashville. They had a 3-page article on this brother about all the businesses that they own, the University of Islam. They was talking about how they was changing the black people in the community. They was talking about all this stuff about Earl X. Who is Earl X? Never heard of no Earl X. And then after they wrote that article about Earl X, they had a separate article some time past about the businesses that Earl X and the believers in Nashville had. And they gave him just as much write-up as they would give a national representative. And you see that. Whenever there was a new temple open, it was a big write-up about that minister, about the new temple he got, how many people came, what he had there. It was no you the #1 student. Right. They even had articles talking about Muslims who it was a city in Indiana. And they was talking about how this was a rundown little black community in Indiana. But they said when the Muslims came to Indiana and started opening up Shabazz bakeries, opened up I forget the name of the restaurant. I believe it was a Shabazz restaurant. It was a bakery, a restaurant. They had a supermarket. They said they raised the economy of this black city. So what about them brothers? How they wasn't the #1? Like, then another thing you find out is sisters were soldiers too. You think that it was just the brothers? I done read some articles from some sisters. Wow, this is a sister. See, I'm talking about hardcore Elijah Muhammad. Right. I remember I was listening to the table talks. One of the table talks I got. It was this sister, this brother. It seemed like to me, the brother was sincere. He just asked the messenger, what would happen after you die? This sister. She was sitting with the messenger. She just got all unglued. Like, what you mean? What's going to happen when the messenger dies? How you going to come here and ask a question like that? I guess people must have been asking this question disrespecting the messenger. And she felt like he was trying to say he need to die or something. But she took it and she went off. And the messenger ain't say nothing. She went off on the brother. She said what she had to say. And he was, oh, well, I'm sorry. I didn't mean, like, all I was just saying. And I'm like, wow, sisters. So when you read the Muhammad Speaks newspaper, the old Muhammad Speaks newspapers, and you see the articles from the messenger, you will see his position and how we should stand now as far as these different situations. Because everything that was that's happening now, it was happening then. Everything. It's not any kind of circumstances that we dealing with now that they wasn't dealing with then. You know what I'm saying? Because Muslims then, when the Black Power thing was real, like, because when you read the Muhammad Speaks newspaper in the 60s, you see they mostly be dealing with the preachers. Most of the cartoons in there was the preacher. They had the preacher, he was begging the white man and all that. But when you get about 68, 69, you start noticing now it's the revolutionaries that's in there. Now the cartoons talking about the Black Power fist, the afro and the daishiki. And Muslims used to go hard on that. It wasn't like, well, this brother, he doing no. It was, they had a cartoon in the Muhammad Speaks with a brother with an afro, it was a sister with an afro, and they both had their power fists up, and they had on shorts. And under it, it said, this is the most uncivilized style that the black man could wear. And next to it, it had a picture of a monkey with all the hair on it, like dragging like a bat, saying that they imitating the white man coming out the cave. Straight up. It wasn't. Now think about how a Black Power person would feel if they got the Muhammad Speaks and saw that. Think of how the brothers, even when Malcolm was going through his things, like, look at how many black people like Malcolm. Could you imagine being the FOI and you standing there with a paper with his head bouncing? Like, think about that. You in New York. The messenger ain't saying, no, don't put that. You in New York, Muhammad Speaks, and his brothers coming and they love Malcolm, and your paper got his head bouncing in the street. You know what I'm saying? It's like if you look at the Muhammad Speaks and really take into consideration the time that they were saying it, he was going against it. Everything. Whether he was a Muslim or anything. Like, he gave brothers credit where credit was due, but if that brother was wrong, he didn't co-sign. All praise is due to Allah. And I want to continue on with what he said about Martin Luther King. And then another thing that's with Jesse Jackson is Jesse Jackson was a part of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. This was what Dr. King was over. So while this the same paper that the messenger talking about Dr. King, Jesse Jackson coming to the salon. When the messenger and them was talking about Stokely Carmichael, he used to come to the salon. It's like and that's what lets you know that the messenger was telling us the truth.
Right.
He could tell you the truth in your face and you would still come around him. Tell you about an afro and say it's uncivilized, and Jesse Jackson had the biggest afro and he'll still come. And when the messenger passed away, all that stuff that the messenger was saying about Jesse Jackson said that Elijah Muhammad is the father of black consciousness. He said that when we were Negroes, he was black. Still gave him his props. After all that criticizing that the messenger did, you got to give him his credit. You got to give him his credit, because the messenger was the only one giving us facts. Straight up. These other people don't give you facts. They telling you what you want to hear. Anytime you can tell or have black people, and you have multitudes of black people coming and listening to you, and you a Muslim minister, and you would tell them to go vote, you lying. You would tell them to go back to the church. You lying. Anytime you have a Muslim minister who is not in his suit and bow tie when he around lost founds, you faking. Why don't you want to? When did you ever see the messenger didn't have his suit and bow tie on? Never. You didn't never see him with this casual, I'm around the lost found, I got to get casual. He never did that. When you see the messenger, they used to write articles about the messenger, talking about, even white people used to write articles about the messenger in these magazines, talking about how they admired the fact that other black leaders would always be trying to go to these big dinners. They would always try to be seen. they would always tell what they gonna do before they do it. But they would say the messenger, his stuff would be in operation for years before they even knew. Like, wow, like he didn't say nothing about that. He never went anywhere. I remember I listened to an interview with, I think it was Louis Lomax. And Louis Lomax was asking the messenger about all the farmland and all the businesses they had. The messenger was like, yeah. He was like, some of that stuff I never went. I never saw it. He was like, but I know that if they do what I tell them to do, they'll be successful. He said he never, I was like, he said, I hardly leave my home. That's what he said. He's like, I ain't never went to some of this stuff. And then they used to write articles about how a lot of the messenger's followers, in the 60s, they would say that some of the messenger's followers never saw him. Because back then, brothers, the believers was poor. And they let that be known. A lot of, like, when you read the history of the Islam in Atlanta, them brothers, they didn't start out like how we imagine, like the Nation of Islam and the messenger. When you read the history from the believers, when they write it in the Muhammad speech, they was catching hell. We just don't. I remember Ahmad told us one time, he was like, y'all just don't know what we had to go through to get it to what it is now. It's like, y'all just don't know what we had to go through. Because even he was like, it wasn't no Black Panthers, it wasn't no Hebrews. He said it was just us and the Christians. It's like, y'all just don't know. And when you read the history of Islam and how the messenger just stood strong on his position, whether people liked it or not. And it was a documentary, I think it's called We Come This Far by Faith. And it was a black preacher. His name was James Cone. He said that back in the 50s when the messenger was talking separation, he was like, we preachers, we ain't want to hear that. Him talking about separation and talking about the white man like that. But he said after years went by, said we realized Elijah Muhammad was right. All praise be to Allah. That's what he said. He was right. And if you look at anything written about the messenger, like in the 40s and the 50s and the early 60s, they're right. Like the Nation of Islam was not popular at all. When the messenger was first coming out with the white man is the devil and all of that, it wasn't popular. You read the history of the Muslims, they was catching hell. In Atlanta, they was talking about how when the Muslims first came to Atlanta, I think it was in 55, they was talking about how the Atlanta Constitution is the newspaper. The white people will write articles in the Atlantic Journal-Constitution talking about outside agitators. Talking about these niggas in Atlanta, we got them under control. We don't want these outside agitators, you know, ruffling the feathers of these niggas we got in control. I mean, they used to straight up. It wasn't like it was some, oh, we don't want to say that. And then they had the dude, the Ku Klux Klan member that wrote the letter to the messenger that he wrote another letter before that when the messenger was coming to Atlanta. And he was talking about how he didn't like the Muslims coming to Atlanta. And he was telling the messenger and the Muslims how I turn these niggas against you. You know what I'm saying? I got these niggas under control. These niggas don't give us no problems. And these niggas will do what we say pretty much. And this is what the Muslims in Atlanta had to go through. From 55, and if you look at the history, Islam did not really start growing until probably late 60s. It wasn't like it was booming. It was small number of Muslims, just like how we are now. And they was catching hell. The Ku Klux Klan threatening to come and march when you having a meeting. And you still only got a few brothers. When the brother in Louisiana in the 60s, his wife was pregnant. And she fighting the police when they raided the temple, his pregnant wife. Muslims in the 30s, when you read about it, was just like all of the stuff that the Muslims went through, you would have a misconception if you didn't read it from the Muhammad. So you would think it was the smooth sailing. It wasn't, brothers. It was another article in the Muhammad speaks about this brother in Atlanta. The police paid a drunk person to start an argument with this brother. So the drunk brother started an argument with the brother. So the police came and just drew his weapon on the brother. So the articles say that the brother hollered out, Allahu Akbar. And brothers just came to help the brother. And they got into an altercation with the police. And the brother ended up getting killed. And I think the police got shot. You had many articles like that where the police would incite the brothers. It wasn't like, I remember one, it was a brother talking about or the police was saying that this brother tried to force a sister to buy the paper. It was all kinds of stuff that you read even with Junior FOI, it wasn't like it was just the brother. Junior FOI done got killed too. It was just like when you read this stuff and see the hell that the Muslims was catching, but the messenger still stood firm on what he said. He didn't change it. And now you see these brothers, it's like, nah, man, I can't go for that. You know, any Muslim who read what Muslims went through to get us, nah, man. Just say it like that. We don't. All praise due to Allah. If they can go through all of that, why we can't say the white man's the devil? What we worrying about now? All that hell, they got the ball rolling. We should just take it and run it. You know what I'm saying? They got it rolling. We can say the white man is the devil. We can say he a two-legged dog. A no good blue-eyed. That's how they no good blue-eyed devil. You know what I'm saying? That's how Muslims used to be. Whenever there was an article where some white person attacked the messenger, the Muslims would come out full force. Like, don't talk about the messenger like that. It wasn't this thing, well, you know, we just, nah. It was just like it was militant. Even when the article about the brothers in Atlanta, when the messenger was going to Atlanta, they said that the Ku Klux Klan had threatened to march through wherever the meeting was. So they said that the Muslims had got a big thing where they was trying to get all the Muslims from around the country to come to Atlanta. And they said that it was a group of Muslims that told the white people in Atlanta, we come in peace. But we're not responsible for what would happen if the Ku Klux Klan marched through our meeting. Flat out. It wasn't like, oh, well, you know, the white man. No, flat out. So the police and other groups was trying to keep the Muslims from speaking it, the messenger from coming. So they had rented like 3 or 4 different halls that the people reneged. So when the messenger finally got the hall where they was going to speak at, the police told them that they couldn't have the loudspeakers outside. So they say the Muslims opened the windows and put the speakers by the windows and blasted it out the windows. That was Muslims. All praise to to Allah. Like, okay, we gonna obey your law. You say you don't want, but we still gonna do what we came to do. And the messenger came, he spoke, and he left. And that's when Islam for Atlanta started to pick up, when the messenger came. And this brother, brother Jeremiah, this is another minister that they don't. This brother, if you read the history of brother Jeremiah in Atlanta, that brother was a soldier too. So how you gonna say you was the #1 student for the messenger? What about Jeremiah? You know what I'm saying? This brother down in the South, down in Georgia, during the 50s, during the 60s, pushing the messenger's program. But you the #1. That Jeremiah was talking about how, because it's him on YouTube talking about his time in Georgia. And he would make it plain that when I was in Georgia, he said only black people that was in Georgia was picking cotton with their head down. Not just picking cotton, but you picking it with your head down like, boss. That's what he said. And he was talking about how he caught hell with the Klan. He was talking, now they talk about with this Malcolm thing, because Jeremiah was doing deals with the Ku Klux Klan to get land. Now, a lot of these conscious people today, because Malcolm was talking about the messenger and the Klan had a little deal. Talking about, now listen to how stupid this sounds. They said that the messenger and the Klan had a deal, and the Klan agreed to sell the messenger some land to make his program seem more feasible to black people. So in other words, we shouldn't have no land. So the Klan saying to trick these black people to think that Elijah Muhammad's plan is good, we're going to give them some land. How silly is that? What difference would it make if he bought the land from Billy Graham? The white man is the devil. So what difference do it make? The messenger believed that the white man was the devil. It wasn't no thing where he's saying the bad white man's the devil, then it's the good. That's that new school Islam where you talk about Father Flager, like he's trying to help black people and he got good in his heart for black people. But the government, they bad. Like, no, you don't find that when you read the old Muhammad Speaks newspaper. And it's a lot that we can say, brothers and sisters. But for the sake of time, I leave you as I came in the Nation of Islam's greeting words of peace. Assalamu alaikum.
Yes, sir.
Oh, the buckets, yeah.
Brothers and sisters, rise for prayer. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent and Merciful. All praise I do thee, Allah, Lord of all the worlds. The Beneficent and Merciful. So Master in the day of judgment in which we now live. You we serve, any longer we teach thy help and name mercy. O Allah, please guide us in the right path. The path of those upon whom thou hast bestowed thy favors. Not the path of those upon whom thy wrath has been brought down, but the path of those who go astray after they have heard thy teachings. Say, He, Allah, is one God. Allah is he of whom nothing is independent, but upon whom we all depend. He begets not, nor is begotten, and there is none like him. And I bear witness that none deserves to be served, worship, or praise besides Allah, who came to us in the person of Master Farad Muhammad. And I bear witness that the most honorable Elijah Muhammad was thy true servant, last apostle. Amen. Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us not to do anything to anyone that we wouldn't have done to ourselves, treat everybody right, even the devil. Assalamu alaikum.